Oh, okay. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So, I'm from Japan. My name is Akira. I'm known as a Matsuda on GitHub and a underscore Matsuda on Twitter. I'm a member of Ruby committer at the right end and Rails committer at the left end. Also, I've been contributing to Rails like since 6 years ago. I'm organizing a Ruby community in Tokyo called asakusa.rb. Okay, so this is the, we do like a weekly meetup on every Tuesday. So if you have a chance to visit Tokyo, please join us. So this is the end of my community talk today. And the rest of my talk will be 100% technical talk, right? You ready? So let's begin. Today I'm going to talk about two things. A library named ActionView and some template engines in Ruby. So ActionView. ActionView is the view layer of Ruby on Rails framework, which used to be a part of ActionPack framework, ActionPack library, but until Rails 4.0, I think, and then extracted into a separate gem since Rails 4.1. You see, this happened very recently. So the library is usually documented as action space view, but the gem name is actually ActionView, and it's placed in a directory named action_view, and then it defines a module named ActionView for, I think, some historical reason. This is weird. Anyway, let's take a look at the gem spec. In the gem spec, there are several dependencies like this, and you'll notice that ActionView is not actually depending on Rails. There's no dependency on Rails, right? And here, I'll put underlines. Here it defines a development dependency to ActionPack. ActionPack is another Rails component composed of abstract controller and action dispatch and action controller. So it's a MVC layer of MVC. So this development dependency means ActionView uses ActionPack only on development mode, for testing the library itself. And it doesn't require ActionPack in runtime, right? So, why was ActionView extracted into a gem? How can we actually use this gem in our applications? I can think of two possible use cases. One is that Rails application, we can create Rails application that uses some alternatives to ActionView, like maybe something faster than ActionView. Actually, I haven't seen such thing yet, but this has to be possible, right? Or presumably, we can now create applications that using ActionView outside of Rails or independent of ActionPack. For example, like for Sinatra, for example. This makes sense because you can use ActionView's rich helper methods on your Sinatra apps, and by using ActionView, you can keep the view files dry. Almost Rails compatible, right? So let's actually try these two ideas and see how it works. Okay. Thank you. The first idea was Rails application without ActionView. Let's make sure it's possible. This is actually quite easy. Seeing the help message, you'll find that there's the application generator has large V option. --skip -action -view here. There it is. So the only thing we should do is generate a Rails application, Rails new something -v, right? So the generated configuration file becomes like this. It contains something like require active model, active record, active controller, but the require action view railtie is commented out like this. So here it is. Now that this application is action view free, right? So how does it actually work? Let's try. Like Rails generate scaffold, RegTV migrate, start up the server, and visit the user's page. Then what's going to happen is it renders. So it's obviously still using ActionView somehow. It's commented out. But the reason is that here, 2 lines above, it requires action controller railtie. And inside action controller railtie, it requires action view railtie. Apparently, this should be a bug, right? So maybe we can write a patch like this, removing the require in action pack railtie. And that's it. I should commit this. Is everything okay? I actually tried this and run the application, but no. Still, it renders. Because, so I dug deeply a little bit more, and I found that these 3 gems actually depending on ActionView in the gem specs: Action Pack and Action Mailer and Sprockets Rails. Sprockets Rails is required from Rails, so it's, I think, inevitable to require Sprockets Rails in a Rails application. And each of them touch ActionView code casually, like, for example, like this. From Action Pack, it accesses the ActionView component. And from Sprockets Rails, it uses ActionView like this. So what we learned is you cannot skip ActionView. You cannot skip loading ActionView. So what does this option mean? So I wrote an issue 3 days ago, actually like a day before I came to Taiwan. This option means nothing. And Jeremy said, +1. So then someone wrote a patch, so the option was removed. So skip ActionView option was only available in Rails 4.1 and will be removed since the next version. Thank you. So it turns out my first assumption was wrong. It's actually impossible. So let's try the second idea. Application without Rails. Using ActionView without Rails or ActionPack. Let's try creating a minimum application, a command line application that renders a template file into a standard out console. This sounds pretty useful, right? So let's start off with a very simplest case, I think, render text. But how can I use ActionView? How can I render using ActionView? Maybe there's a method named render somewhere inside the ActionView component, I guess. There should be. Okay, let's grab the method definition, like get grep def render. So here's the output. You'll get this output, like you'll find 46 render methods inside ActionView. It's quite impressive. But by looking closer, you find that these ones are actually defined in the helper tags, and these ones down there is used for some test helpers. So let's cut them off. The rest will be like this. This still remains 20 render methods, but anyway, now that we know there's a method called render, and I guess it can use, yeah, the view should respond to render method. So maybe something like this. Firstly, create a gem file, and maybe something like this should work, right? Just create a instance of ActionView base, which should supposedly respond to render method. We can call render text. It's so simple. So do you think this works? Please raise a hand if you think this should work. Please raise a hand. Thank you. All right. Let me try. Where's the console? Yo, quick up. Okay. Specific. Rail specific and gem file. And application. Right? Bundle. And bundle exec ruby app.rb. What? It works. It works. So, it's done. This actually prints out hello. It worked. It's pretty simple, right? So the next render method is render inline. I'm gonna skip the demo, but this still works. You can pass in a ERB string to inline option. Then it compiles the ERB string into a HTML and prints out to the console. So ERB is available like this. And so rendering file. Let's find a template from the file system. Like this. Demo again. Create a hello text. And render file, hello text. Whoops. What's happening? Oh my god, it doesn't work. Yes. Does not work. So the error was uninitialized constant. ActionView, lookup context, details, key, mime. What's that? What is mime? Mime is a module defined in action pack, lib, action dispatch, HTTP mime type. So it turns out you cannot use ActionView outside of action pack. I mean, without bundling action pack. I'm sorry, I told you a lie. So ActionView still depends on action pack in runtime. This is the fact. So again, I wrote an issue 3 days ago. ActionView is still not independent of action pack. And again, Jeremy said, +1. It should have a runtime dependency. So it turned out this idea was impossible, and at least I'm sure nobody has tried this crazy idea before. Oh. So again, these two turns out to be false assumptions. So why was ActionView extracted to a gem? I don't know. No idea. Anyway, a pro tip. Here's the pro tip. This is how I usually find Rails bugs. Try something weird like this on Rails, and you'll inevitably hit bugs like this, right? So anyway, as for this mime thing, you just can copy the mime type.rb from action dispatch and require it, cut something at the bottom line, at the very bottom, and it is going to be working. So the next trial is render template. Actually, I'm going to do this. Copy action dispatch mime type.rb and mime type cut off the bottom line and bundle exec. What? The require relative mime, I think type works. So the next demo is rendering a template like this. Hello HTML. And edit this line like this. Render template this time, not render file. Again, something happens. So error again. This time, the error is ActionView missing template, because ActionView doesn't know where to find the template. You should tell ActionView to find the template within this directory. Like this. And it works now, thank you. Actually, you don't need to specify .html ERB, because ActionView would assume these file types from the format and handler and these things. So the code can be like this: render template hello. I guess you're familiar with this method call, right? So what actually does render template do? It's time for code reading. So before getting started, let's quickly let's quickly investigate that what methods are actually called from the actual REST application. This is somewhat similar to the what was that? Rails-driven development, which Nick mentioned yesterday. But in this case, I did puts color into the view file, right? Puts color or color locations. This really helps debugging. So this is going to output something like this on your console. You see so much render method. So let's start reading from that one, render template. Okay, so this is the source code of ActionView rendering. ActionView rendering defines a method called _rendering render template, which calls view renderers render method with view context. So view context is something like this. It's a class method call which creates a instance method of view context class. View context class is some kind of anonymous class that inherits from ActionView base. Okay. So view context is not actually a direct instance of ActionView base, but it's an anonymous child of ActionView base. And the view renderer is something like this: ActionView renderer's instance. So back to rendering.rb. View renderer dot render with view context. The render method calls render template inside. The render template after render calls renderer.new.another render. So another render after render, template after render, which calls renderer slash template renderer.rb. And inside this render method, there's another called render template call. So another render template after another render after render template after render. And in this render method, it determines template and renders it. So, determine template is doing something like this. If the option text is passed, then it creates an instance of template text. If the option was inline, then it creates an instance of template with inline string. And if the option was template, then it finds template. I guess you understand what these mean. So, for example, at the very top, if the option was text, then it creates something like this, template text. It's a very simple object that responds to render and just returns the string which is passed into the instance. So there's this render template. Render template is actually firstly calls find template there. And it's a very, very long journey to find the template from the template file name and the format and the handler and locale and variables. Anyway, it uses something called lookup context and finds the template finally. And the templates found are cached in the memory. This is the final code executed. It returns the instance of template with the contents. Contents is the string that is written in the file, right? So the template resolution was like read the content from the file and create a handler instance. It's actually create a handler instance. It's not here. Anyway, it creates something. Extract handler and format and variant. Yeah, that creates a handler instance. And returns an instance of template that has the content and the handler. So handler, what is handler? Handler is something like this. It's a template engine's interface. So the handler could be like ERB handler or Hamel handler, Slim handler, etc., etc. And so going back to the template renderer, again, it calls template.render. So the template itself has the render method. It responds to render. And this is how the render method looks like. It calls compile and some method with the method name. So it compiles a view and executes something. Compile is like this. It runs the method body only if not compiled yet. And that means compile is executed only once, right? So compile is like this. It defines something with a def, blah, 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 and executes this def method on the module. I mean the class. So compile. Yeah. There's a handler.call. Handler.call returns a Ruby code, which is going to be a method body. The code there, right? So the code is defined on the view context object as a Ruby method. And again, back to the template.rb. Then the defined method is called. Template rendering is not actually eval, but it's a method call, method execution. So this is the template handler, how the handler works. It has to respond to call, a method called call that takes a template instance, and the call method returns compiled HTML string, which is very simple, like rack, I think. So the actual code should be like this. Instead of directly using ActionView, just create a subclass and called render with template. This is what is happening inside Rails, right? And this way you can confirm that actually some method is added before and after, like comparing before and after public methods. Calling render adds one method, right? Which can be reused. So that's it. That's how ActionView works. And the next part is template engines. I guess only have like 5 more minutes? 10, okay. That's enough. So let's take a deeper look into the handler call, the actual implementations. There are several Ruby template engines like this: ERB, Haml, Slim. So the first example is ERB. ERB handler is actually bundled in ActionView by default. So you can find its source code here. In ActionView, template handler is ERB module. There is one configuration called ERB implementation, and it's defaulted to Erubis. And it calls the ERB implementation class.new. This is how it switches the ERB implementation. So what is Erubis? Looks like this is configurable, and you can use something else, right? So I guess you know that ERB implementation, which is bundled to Ruby as a standard library, is called ERB. Erubis is something that compatible to ERB, which claims to be faster than ERB. So here, Rails uses Erubis instead of default ERB. But to be honest, if you set this option to ERB, it doesn't work. ActionView test will never pass. So here's another unknown, meaningless option, meaningless configuration. It doesn't actually work. It has to be Erubis, right? And I knew this issue back since 2 or 3 years ago. So Seki-san, the creator of ERB, and I once tried to fix this issue. Like, let Rails run with default ERB. But we failed. Rails do never work with Ruby's default ERB, which is sad. So anyway, looking at this code, it executes ERB or Erubis .new source, right? It passes the template string into the initializer, and then calls .src method. Then it returns back the HTML string. It actually works like this. You can confirm this on a one-liner or IRB, like this. It should work like this. .src returns not an HTML string. It's a Ruby code that you can eval, right? So erb.new.src gets an erb template string and returns a Ruby code that generates the result HTML like this, right? So the next example is Haml. All right. This is how you can use Haml in my previous tiny application. Just bundle Haml and create a Haml template and require Haml template. Pass in another option named handlers Haml. I suppose to work. I suppose this should work, but actually this didn't. I needed some weird monkey patch because Haml depends on action pack and Rails only for these methods. So I needed to define action pack version measure and Rails M production. Anyway, this tiny code still works, and this prints out hello Haml that I wrote here, right? And next example is, sorry, I didn't explain the Haml implementation, but it's similar, just similar. So the next example is Slim. Again, you just cannot require Slim because requiring Slim, well, before requiring Slim, again, you need these things: Rails action pack, version measure, and Rails Zamb. So require Slim manually instead of requiring from Ruby, bundler, and this works. This prints out hello Slim, right? So it's time for benchmark. Now that I succeeded to run these 3 templates in a simplest console application, so now that I can benchmark, right? So require benchmark IPS and render all these 3 templates like this. Do I have time to do this? Okay, I'm going to do it. There is a ERB file, so I need to create Haml template. Whoops. Haml. Come on. Okay. Also Slim. Hello Slim. Oof. Oof. Then let me just copy and paste. Bundle. And right. Please pray for me. Please work. Cool. So now it renders ERB, renders Haml, renders Slim. The bigger is faster. rendering ERB, rendering Hamel, come on, and rendering Slim. There it is. So, one thing that I can tell is apparently Hamel is so slow. Hamel is slow. Come on, Hamel. And, well, I forgot to tell you one thing when introducing myself. Actually, I'm a Hamel committer. I'm sorry for this. So, I tried to improve this speed, and I started creating a fork, Hamel fork, the faster fork. It's not done yet, but it improved a little bit, like 10%, I guess, 10 or 20%. It's only in my local branch. It's not published yet, but Hamel is getting faster sooner or later. So, please stay tuned. This is the end of my talk. Thank you.